immediately before starting this video, I quickly Googled status quo bias. Or actually, it was like appeal to the status quo, because most logical fallacies are appeal to something. Or they're Latin, in which case it wouldn't matter. And it turns out that this is like an officially recognized logical fallacy. I'm not sure if it's necessarily exactly what I'm looking for and what I want to talk about today, but it's pretty close. So this is like a thing that is known to happen. People have a bias towards and a preference for things that are rather than things that could be or should be. And this comes up a lot in RPGs, especially D&D. I think probably proportionately more so in D&D. And probably not even like specifically 5th edition. I think just D&D in general. Something about the brand makes people want to defer to the way that the rules are written and the way that the game is designed, rather than the way that it maybe should be. Now, this sounds weird about a game where like lots and lots of people homebrew their own stuff. And that's true. That does happen a lot. But I would say that these are two separate populations primarily. Or it is actually something that can exist at the same time. There's a sort of cognitive dissonance that can occur when you have like homebrew or house rules that I like, homebrew or house rules that I don't like, and I'm going to justify not liking those because they do something to the game that changes it in some way, and you shouldn't change the game. And human brains being the way that they are, you can hold both of those opinions simultaneously. And I think that probably happens a lot. So this topic came to my mind because of a Reddit thread, and like maybe I should just stop going to Reddit, right? There's a bunch of clowns in this thread about, it was about a house rule that someone came up with. And they were sort of like just putting it out there, see what opinions are. Maybe, spark some discussion. They noticed that there's really no way to tank properly in 5th edition, to protect your allies actively, aside from like a couple of subclasses for a couple of different classes out there. And so they came up with this universal, this general, available to everyone reaction that you could take. If a ally within 5 feet of you is hit by an attack, you can use a reaction and split the damage between you. And then if there's any effects other than damage, you are both affected. Okay. So you can reduce damage on your ally by taking it onto yourself. This doesn't reduce the total amount of damage that your party is taking. B, it can actually increase it if the secondary effects cause damage, like poison effects, things like that. And it takes your reaction, which is kind of a big deal for a lot of people. And it is decreasingly effective in about tier 2 when monsters start getting a lot of multi-attacks, because you can only use it against one attack. So it's a very weak ability. It kind of does what the author wanted it to do, which is that you can help protect your allies. If they are low on health, or if they are concentrating on a spell, you can take some of that damage, reduce their concentration check DC, or, keep them from going to 0. Whatever it is you need to do. Like, it functionally does what they want it to do. But there were detractors in the comments, specifically talking about how, like, this weakens other tanking abilities. And, like, what tanking abilities are you talking about? And I don't remember if they specifically mentioned any of the subclasses, but they were talking about things like, what is it? It's not Sacred Bond. It's like Warding Bond, I think. It just is a spell that splits damage between two people. At range, by the way, or Compelled Duel came up a lot in this conversation, because it is sort of the most direct incarnation of a 4th edition ability in 5th edition. And to be clear, it is garbage. It is garbage in so many independent ways that like it's a trash ability. Compelled Duel is an awful spell and should never be used. But it is technically a tanking ability. And so their argument was that this weakens existing tanking abilities like Compelled Duel. Or like the Sentinel feat, or things like that. And so it shouldn't exist. And really, an ability that weak, disincentivizing taking other abilities, means that those abilities are also incredibly weak, and it is a problem with that, and it is not a problem with this ability that is being proposed. And so, like, that's just the example that brought this to mind today, but I have seen this many times. You introduce some house rule, or you propose, like, hey, here's this, which solves this problem that I have with the game. And I'm going to be getting to my actual point here in just a minute. And everyone detracts from that, saying like, oh, it's going to affect the game in this way, and is invalidating these other options that exist that are also bad. And so it's frustrating to me that happens, because, like, yes, you're technically right that it invalidates these other options, but these other options were very bad. That's why we're introducing this, so that this play style can become viable, can be fun to play, can be actually active and engaging as a player. Because things like healing in 5th edition is so bad that, like, you are wasting resources by healing anyone who isn't at 0, or by in combat. I mean, out of combat, obviously you want to cap yourself off. But like, if you spend a spell slot to heal someone with a cure wounds, like, you are wasting your action and you are wasting a daily resource, because that is not going to keep up with even one enemy attack. And so someone introduces like good healing, like a brand new class, let's say, that is actually a dedicated healer, and they can support their party and they can heal continuously. And someone's like, well, that's way too powerful, because it's more powerful than this other option that exists. And like, yes, it exists. Yes, that is more powerful. That is not a complete argument about why it should not exist, because, like, clearly this person wants a good healer. And a good healer does not exist in 5e. Even a life cleric is not a good healer. They have better healing than other options, but they're not a good healer. Like, you can't play the healer as a dedicated role in a party. Not in, like, I mean, you can, obviously, because D&D's, like, 5e is such an easy game. You don't need to specialize. You don't need to optimize. You don't need to have party roles, and you can pretty much just kind of like skirt along and find success. But if you are playing in a difficult campaign, or if you are playing for the enjoyment of optimization and for the enjoyment of feeling powerful and having a role, you are a waste if you are playing a healer. Not saying if you're playing a cleric or someone capable of healing. If you are playing a healer as your core character identity, it's wasteful and it's really bad. And that's frustrating for people. I like playing healers. When I played World of Warcraft back in the day, I had 2 different characters that were both dedicated healers. I actually leveled up this is a little bit of a side. For any of you played World of Warcraft, I played a paladin as a healing spec paladin. This is before they had respecs. All the way to max level, which was at the time 65. So maybe this wasn't before they had respecs. But I didn't want to pay for them. So I just played a healing paladin the whole time. When I play 4th edition, I play a warlord. It's my absolute #1 favorite class. And I play Inspiration Warlord, which is the healing specialist. I love healing. It's a good feeling to help your allies, and healing is a very direct way to do that. A lot of players want this experience, and in 5e, that experience is bad. Your numbers are small. They are inconsequential. You don't have the resources to really do it for a long time. And so there's this idea that, like, you shouldn't be able to have the experience that you're looking for, because technically that kind of ability, that general category, can be done with this really bad ability over here that already exists. So a character that's good at doing that shouldn't exist. And that's a really weird argument. So tanking, healing, these are party roles. And yeah, the idea that there are character roles is a myth in 5th edition. Like they just don't exist. Everyone's pretty much a damage dealer / controller, some degree of those two. Like that's the only two things you can really do. There's some damage mitigation, but honestly, the best damage mitigation is control. Just prevent the opponent from being able to hurt you. And so, like, there's not enough non-control damage mitigation, i.e. tanking abilities, healing abilities. There's not enough of that to be a dedicated role. You can be a dedicated controller, you can be a dedicated damage dealer, but you cannot be a dedicated damage mitigator, either tank or healer, or however you want to break these roles down. And people want those experiences, you know, because like, even putting 4th edition aside, like, there is the idea, and I've talked about this before, there is the idea of these roles is sort of central to the general fantasy. You know, you have the upfront warrior being the tank, you have the cleric in the back keeping everyone safe, and then you have like the rogue coming in for like the massive sneak attack damage, and the wizard, you know, throwing down big area control spells, or, you know, fireballs and things like that, just being the artillery. Like, these are roles that characters classically have. It's often depicted in art and literature. Even D&D specific art and literature kind of tends to lean in this direction, but it's not reflected in the gameplay. And it's so in the pop culture idea of the fantasy RPG party that people kind of assume that it happens even when it doesn't. They kind of assume that they can do it. You know, I'm going to be the tank fighter. I'm a new player to 5e. I make my fighter. I'm a champion because, you know, it says the champion's the easiest one to play, so why not? I'm going to have a sword and shield because I'm the party's tank. I'm maybe going to have a +2 con, so I have a lot of hit points. How do I defend my party? Go run up and get hit. I'm the closest one to the enemy, so they should attack me, right? Maybe they will. And I'll go down. I'll go down to 0, because even durable tank characters go down really fast. Like, if you're not doing anything to prevent the enemy from attacking you, you're gonna fall. Yeah, there just isn't much difference between a squishy character and a durable character in 5e. Not without getting spells involved. So anyways, I'm sort of relapsing and like refolding into my past complaints about, you know, lack of party roles and the martial caster disparity. Like, I don't want to talk about those again because I already have, and like everyone has. What I'm talking about is this idea that is in the D&D community, and I've seen it several times, where there's a resistance to the existence of a play experience because it either doesn't exist in the game already, or it like steps on the toes of existing options that are not generally taken because they are so bad. And I kind of wish that would stop, because it inherently stifles creativity, especially because like some people come up with like genuinely good, and this kind of folds onto my previous argument about, like, you know, homebrew actually can be really good in 5e, or RPGs in general, because like there are some like genuinely really creative people who come up with some awesome concepts and awesome mechanics that they can incorporate into the game. And these are like really well thought out. They're really evocative. They're interesting, and dare I say, good design. And people will resist those because they are not what already exists. As if like the only thing that is valid is what is printed in the book. The designers of D&D, like, okay, like I am no fan of Mike Mearls. I despise the guy. And I have very little respect for Jeremy Crawford. The people who designed 5e, even if I liked them personally, even if I thought they were good, even if I thought 5th edition was a good game, which I don't, they're not infallible. You know, they're humans. They make mistakes. They leave things out. They forget things. There's always going to be room for improvement. And so we should not resist the idea that we can improve on these games. You know, man, I could go on for a while, but I feel like I'd be kind of repeating myself at this stage. The point being, I guess my underlying thesis here is that you should not be so resistant to the idea of change that you discount the possibilities that someone else presents. Sounds a little hoity-toity, but I guess that's what I'm going with.